All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome again. My name is Jordan Luther, and I am the 68th president of the AIAS. And today I'll be filling in for our Vice President, Gilberto Lozada Baez, as he's at the ACSA Administrators Conference. He's typically our one to kick us off. I'm happy to be here today with you all. We're very excited to be back here for this series of webinars and workshops with our partners at Vectorworks, who, as many of you know, is a global design and BIM software developer that, just like the AIS, is looking to upskill the next generation of designers. Vectorworks is a proud sponsor of the AIS since 2018, helping us propel students to the forefront of design and architecture professions by engaging them on various aspects of their software. Our series of webinars this year is nearing its end, and that is because today we are diving into the last part of the series entitled Design, Document, and Visualize Your Project Using Vectorworks, in which you'll be discovering how modeling, drawing, and rendering workflows in Vectorworks can help you impress your professors and wow your classmates. Please welcome Ryan Butler, Architect Product Specialist at Vectorworks, who is here to take us step by step through the process of designing a project and creating great presentations for your critiques using only one software, Vectorworks. Thank you, Ryan, for being here with us once again. I'm very excited to hear what you have for us today. The floor is all yours.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to show you this webinar about Vectorworks. This is part two. So we're going to do a little recap and then we'll dive into some more stuff. And just to note that there are so many things in Vectorworks, so I encourage everyone to download a free version of Vectorworks and to try it all out.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the webinar. Thanks for joining us. My name is Ryan Butler, and I'm an Architect Product Specialist at Vectorworks. I'm here to speak with you about designing, documenting, and visualizing your project in Vectorworks. This is the final part in the series where I'll be walking through the process of designing a project and showing you some interesting workflows to excel in your studio. Before we begin, here are some housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on the AIAS YouTube channel for on-demand viewing. Also, there will be a live Q&A session at the end of the webinar to talk about any questions you may have. Today's presentation will cover the following learning objectives. Understand various 3D modeling techniques to effectively design your projects. Discover the power of rendering tools available in Vectorworks to help visualize your designs. Learn how to create drawings from your 3D models to communicate your project's design intent, and review best practices for creating great presentations to impress your professors. Okay, let's get started. First, we'll do a short recap on the basics, and then we'll get into some more specific features and workflows on modeling, visualization, and documentation. Vectorworks is organized with palettes docked on either side. On the left side, I have the attributes palette, tool sets, and then I also have the basic tool set over here. On the right side is the object info palette. So if you have an object selected, like if I have a wall selected, you could see the properties and the settings of that wall. Down here is the navigation palette, where you have layers, classes, sheets, saved views, viewports, and references. The basic toolset is for mainly 2D commands, like for drafting. For example, if you had a rectangle or a circle or lines and so on and so forth, that's what you would use the basic tool set for. All those tools are in here. There's other tools as well, like the clip tool, which we touched on last time, the eyedropper, and other things as well. Okay, with the attributes palette, this is where you can change the line weight, the color, the pen type, transparency, things like that to objects. So for example, if I had this rectangle and circle selected, I could change the color of the fill to pink. I could change the line weight to 2 and make the line really thick. I could change the pen type to a different type of line, like for example, a dotted line, so like that. With the 3D modeling toolset, I can model in a freeform fashion using a bunch of different tools, for example, chamfering in the edges of objects. I can shell a solid. You can set a thickness for the shell as well. You could do other things like fillet edge. That's very small. Like so. And you could also do push-pull modeling too. So if I had an object like this, let's make two objects and combine them using the add solids command with the contextual menu. Then I can go to the push-pull tool and model accordingly. And I could also assign a distance to that too. There also is the building shell toolset, where you can draw walls, place windows and doors, draw slabs, and things for buildings. So let's draw some walls really quick. Now when you have the wall tool selected, you can select a certain wall style. Let's draw this type of wall. There you go. And when I zoom in here, you could see the components of the wall. You can also change the wall style if you want to by going to the Object Info palette, go to Style and Replace, and change it to something else. So if I wanted to have a wall here with tile, for example, this window comes up when you want to replace the wall with a different style. It asks you where to set the datum line of where the wall will be replaced. And then you saw right there, there's the other component. And sometimes you need to rejoin the walls just in case. You could see that the wall joined there. And if I go to 3D, you could see the wall with its components right there. There's other tools too, like the window tool. If I choose a style, let's choose this one, and I'll place it in here. And you could see that it placed right there. And then let's go to 3D. And you can see that window is right there. Now if I wanted to change the settings of the window, I could edit the style. If it's unstyled, I could just go to the settings, but let's go to Edit Plugin Style, just so that we can look at all the different settings. Here is where you can change a bunch of different things, like for example, the height and width, the elevation in the wall. You could change the different type of window, like a folding window, an awning, a casement. This one's fixed. I can make it a tilt turn. You could also change the frame or the sash and change the dimensions of that as well. And you could see a preview in the window here. Now I'm also moving around using the on-screen view control cube here, but I also use the number pad on my keyboard. If I press 0, I can go right back to a top plan view, but I could also do that on the on-screen view control by either rotating around. I can click top, that goes to this view here, which is a 3D top view, but then I can also click this toggle to go to 2D. To go from a basic model like this to a more populated model like this, we have to model cabinets, countertops, and place symbols like furniture and equipment. Let's start with kitchen creation with the cabinet tool and the countertop tool. So I'll zoom into the kitchen and I'll invoke the multi-view, which is just by pressing M on your keyboard and then using the clip cube to clip away some of the surrounding rooms that I don't want to see in a 3D view. And then I'll also hide the stools by using the visibility tool and hiding the stools by class. Okay, so you can see here that we have a full kitchen island modeled already with the countertop and cabinets. So let's delete the first row here, this front row of cabinets, and rebuild them. The cabinet tool is located in the furniture and fixtures toolset. So if I have that toolset selected, I can go to cabinet, and here I could choose from placing a unstyled cabinet or a styled cabinet. I have a bunch of styles, and also there's some that are in the resource manager. So let's take a look at some of them. So if I select this one, and let's say I want to duplicate along line mode. This mode is where you draw a line and then the width of the cabinet will duplicate along that line. So let's see how that works. Okay, cool. So now I have a bunch of cabinets here that are duplicated along that line. So now it didn't fit all the way over here, so maybe we have to adjust these cabinets. Okay, so let's edit the cabinet layout. I know that this space here is 15 feet long, so let's measure that to be sure. I just pressed the N key, which invokes a dimension tool. So you can see that that's 15 feet. Okay, and I have some space over here because I want to have an end panel, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. So, okay, so 15 divided by 3 feet is 5, so we're gonna have 5 cabinets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's delete these two. Now let's take these cabinets here and we'll change the width. So the width here is a weird number, so let's just make it 3 feet. And now we will adjust these accordingly. And since these cabinets are all the same width, we can just duplicate them by using the Move by Points tool. So I can move and duplicate at the same time if I press Shift M. That tool is also in the basic tool palette. And if I have the second mode enabled, I can do a number of duplicates, and I could do, let's do 4. And then I will duplicate. Okay, cool. Now the depth is not what I want either, so let's have those all selected, and we'll change the depth to 11¼ inches. And that's the nice depth that we want. Okay, so now if you look, these are all drawers. There are three drawers. You can see that the third one's tucked in there. But if I don't want the drawer layout like that, I can change that if I want to. So let's keep drawers on either side, and then we'll take the middle 3 and change them to doors. So if I go into the cabinet settings, and then since this is a cabinet style, some of the stuff is grayed out, but we can change the configuration of the cabinet. So let's go to the cabinet box, the configuration, and we will keep it standard. And then the face, we will do doors. And then press OK. So now the doors here, you can see that there's a swing here. Let's take a look in the cabinet settings. You can see that the door double is right here. And then when I have door double, you can change that also to pull out, false front door, single door left, single door right, but I like to have the double. Now you can also change certain aspects of the cabinet box, like the thickness of the cabinet. I kept it at 3/4 inch. That is like the frame of the cabinet. And then also you can add certain things like the base height, that is like the toe kick. You can also apply that to the front, the back, and either side. This tab is my favorite tab of the tool, where you can change the reveals and also the frame of the cabinet. I have a lot of them grayed out because, again, this is a cabinet style, but you can change the fact that the face frame thicknesses are different, and then also the doors are different too. So if you want nice reveals, you can set that here. And let's zoom in so I can show you those reveals. So you can see that I have a little reveal on the door there. And then also I have a toe kick right here, a kick inset. Okay, we were just dealing with a cabinet that was styled. Now let's take a look at a cabinet that is unstyled. It would look like this. Let's go to cabinet and go to unstyled, and we'll just place it. We'll do a single cabinet and we'll place it right here. So it looks like that. and it takes on the last cabinet that you placed, so that looks like the cabinet that we had before. But if I were to change this, you can just go to the cabinet settings, and then again, all these options now are available for you to change. So for example, if I wanted to change the drawers here, let's say I don't want this drawer layout, I don't like the way it looks, I can go to the configuration. I have a standard cabinet. You can make it a diagonal if you want to. You can do blind right. Let's just do standard. And now I have a door here. But if I wanted to do drawers, it'll be a single drawer. And let's say I want to add 6 drawers or 3 drawers or 4 drawers, it doesn't matter. I can add more levels to this cabinet, and you can see that they're adding right here. And let's do a hidden line so we can see that better. So the drawer here is right there. Let's say I want to make these openings drawers instead. I could do that. And then now if I want to change the drawer height, I can do that as well. So if you click this button here, you can change that opening height to a different number. So let's say I want to make this 12 inches, or actually let's make it 8 inches. And then since the others have this icon shown here, these will calculate the drawer height automatically for you. If you wanted to make it a special height, an opening height, you have to click it to change the icon to the pen icon, and then you can change that opening height. You can also define it by this parameter as well. You can also change the handle. So for example, I just changed this one over here. If I wanted to change the bottom drawer to centered in the middle, then I press OK, and then that drawer changes. With the cabinet tool, there are a bunch of settings to go through, and they are all available within this settings window. Now, there's visualization settings for 2D and 3D. Like for example, if I wanted to open the drawers or open the doors, if I wanted to change the classes of the doors and the cabinet, I could do that here as well. This is where I would change the textures as well. So if I wanted to change the doors and drawers, let's change that to this yellow texture, for example, and then I press OK. And then that's that change right there. Now, if I wanted to do an end panel or like a filler piece to fit between the cabinet and the countertop edge, I can do that by placing another cabinet, going to the settings, and going to the general part, the general tab of the settings. And then in the configuration area, I would just choose end panel left or right. And then you would get this result. And then you can just adjust accordingly based on the depth or the thickness. The thickness is determined by the cabinet box thickness. You can also place objects within the cabinet, like a microwave, for example, or you don't have to have a cabinet at all. You could just place a dishwasher, for example. Right now, there's no cabinet here. And also, if I deleted this, you could see that there's a hole within this cabinet. So to do that, what you would do in the cabinet settings is to go to the general tab, and then you can choose an appliance opening. And that's just in these options here. And when you have that appliance opening selected, you can define the opening height, and then the width you define with the face frame. So I left this available to edit when I was creating the cabinet style. Okay, so now we have this kitchen island cabinets placed. Let's redo and remodel the countertop. So first let's delete this countertop, and you can see that this is what the kitchen island would look like. Now let's place a new countertop. So the countertop tool is in the furniture and fixtures tool set. Select the tool, and then I would immediately look at the mode bar at the top. There's 3 different modes to choose from to place a countertop. The first one being drawing your own countertop with the vertex mode. You could just draw whatever shape you like. The next one is the marquee mode. So if you click this one, you would just select the cabinet with a marquee to decide what the countertop would bind to. So if I press the check mark here, you'd see that the countertop would immediately go over that area. Now the last one, which is my favorite one, is the pick mode. The pick mode is really great because you choose which cabinets you want here. So if I'm rolling over the cabinets, you could see that they're highlighting. And then also there's a bridge mode. Now the bridge mode, when this is enabled, it will gap over certain areas. Like for example, this area here where the dishwasher is, if I select all these cabinets, I don't have a cabinet selected here, but it will bridge over that to make a countertop. Like that. So that's really great and very easy to do when you are creating a countertop. Now, when you have the countertop created, right? Now, what you can do is you can go into the settings and start to play around with edge treatments, insertions, attributes, and other data associated with it. I chose a countertop that has a style already, so let's make this unstyled so we can play around with it. So if I go to edge treatments, you could see that a window shows up, and in plan this window would show up where I could choose different edges. I could choose the offset, I could choose like the overhang, the treatment as in a waterfall edge, or the profile, or add a backsplash. So for example, if I choose side 1, edge 1, and then edge 3, I can choose a waterfall for that. And then let's press OK. And you can see that now that there's a waterfall for that countertop. Another thing with countertops is that you can insert objects into it, like for example, a faucet or sink. So I already have a sink placed here. Let's move the sink out. You can see that it's floating right in front here. You can see the sink is here. Now if I wanted to insert this into the countertop, I would just go roll over to it. And you can see that I'm clicking and dragging into where the countertop is. You can see it highlighted in 3D and 2D, and just let go. And now the sink is placed in my countertop. With the countertop, you can also change other attributes like the overhang or a backsplash or the edge trim profile. Like for example, you can round out the edges, you can do a full bull nose, you could do an OG end, you can do a quarter round, and so on and so forth. This insertion shows the sink that I just inserted before. You can undermount it or surface mount it. Let's see what happens when I do that. You can see here now it's surface mounted. And then also what you can do is change the attributes in the sense of texturing. So if I went to this and I chose a different marble, let's do a pink one, and let's do the same for the rest. And you can see that that changed there. For 2D attributes, you can change that via class settings, or you can make that by instance. After modeling your cabinets and countertops and placing your equipment, your kitchen could look something like this, where there are multiple different types of cabinets and countertops in place. These tools are not limited to kitchens. You can also do bathrooms and other situations like so. This area specifically is a bathroom with a vanity and a thick countertop. This is a cabinet up here with a mirror finish and shelves beyond, you could see, and then also cabinets here that are floating against the wall. To make your model really pop, you can use custom symbols, furniture, and lighting in your model. Let's take a look at this fireplace that I modeled. Right now it's located in the living room of the project. The fireplace itself is a solid addition, so what I did to do that was I pretty much just extruded objects added them together, and then I also extruded more objects, then subtracted from that area. And the way I did that was by taking an object, having overlapping objects, and right-clicking and either add solid, subtract solid. You could also do intersect or section, but right now we're just doing add or subtract. So if I subtracted this one and I pressed OK, you would see that this is a pretty wild shape. So let's just delete this big one here and we'll work with this shape. Now, if I wanted to change this subtraction here, I can go and double click the solid and I can go back into the history of that object and change the pieces. Like for example, this object right here, I could lift this up. And you can see here that I have the 3D dragger enabled when I have an object selected. This is really great when you're trying to move an object along one of the axes, whether it's X, Y, or Z. And now I can subtract solids one more time to get the appropriate shape. Now, if I wanted to add and apply textures, I could also do that with the texture tool that's in the basic tool palette. Now, when I click that, I have this paintbrush and I have to select a texture. When I click select a texture, the resource manager opens up and I have to search for a texture. Now, I used this brick stacked texture for the fireplace, but if I wanted to use a different one, I could search for one. Now I have these modes up here where I could texture the whole object or the face. So let's do it by the face. Now that's great, but what if I want to change the orientation of this texture? I can select the object, go to the object info palette, and you could see in the render tab of the object info palette that there are face overrides. That is what we just applied the texture to. So if I have this one right here and I select this face override, you could see that this face here is highlighted. So let's click it again. You can see it in red. Now I could change the scale by just dragging it up or down. And then let's change the rotation to 90. And you can see that that changed. Now let's do the same with the others. You could also change the location of the texture. Like for example, if you want them to meet over here, you could change the texture like this one, and then you could change the offset. So if I wanted to make this 0, and then this 0, it looks better now. It looks like they're meeting up now. If I wanted to remove this, all I would have to do is select the object, go to the object info palette, and go to the render tab, and then just right click it and then remove the texture override. If I have my 3D model, that's perfect the way that I want. I can also apply 2D line work to this object. Now, if I was in the top plan view in the 3D model, you could see that this doesn't look exactly the way I want in 2D. If I was to draw 2D line work over this, like for example, this or this, and then I would exit or create a symbol from this, the object in 2D would look like these two rectangles, but in 3D it would look like this. So the 2D line work that we applied here is actually this 2D line work. And then I drew this before, so that's why we're in the edit symbol window. But if the way that you would do it is you would model something in place and then draw some 2D line work over it, over the top of it, the front or the sides, and then you can create a symbol. The way you create a symbol is by going to the Modify tab at the top and then go to Create Symbol. Now I have something selected, that's why it's showing possible, but if I didn't have anything selected, for example, like right now, it would be grayed out. But if I selected this and create a symbol, then a window would come up where you can name the symbol, assign a class to it, and you could see if it inserts into walls or not, and so on and so forth. Symbols like the fireplace that we were just working on, or furniture, or this furniture, or other objects like this wall panel that I have here, are all located within the resource manager. Now, to open the resource manager, you can press Command R or Control R, and then this window would show up. Now, here is where you could see symbols if the filter is on symbols and plugin objects. You can also search for Renderworks textures, like the brick that we were just working with, and then you can search for other ones, like so. Or you could see the ones that are in your project, like right over here, which are a bunch in this project. It's very easy to place symbols in your project. So if I were to invoke the resource manager and open that up and go to symbols and plugin objects, I can go to the search bar and look for a toilet. And a bunch are already loaded here. And I can choose this one, or yeah, let's choose this one, and I just drag it in. And then the toilet is already here. I could do the same thing with furniture if I wanted to do a sofa. And let's do this one. And then I could just place that here. And then in 3D, you could see that we have a toilet in the middle of the living room and then a bench over here. The 3D views that I've been showing you throughout this video show you the model in a shaded view, meaning you see the textures, you can see the colors of objects, you can see components of objects, and the shadows if they are applied. Shaded rendering is a great way to quickly visualize your project in 3D and get a realistic view of what your project could look like. Now, when I am in a 3D view, like an isometric like this one, or a view like this one, this is all the shaded render mode. But you can go to the top of the application and select the render mode, make sure it's on shaded, and you can go to shaded options to see 3 different areas to choose different settings. For example, let's start with quality because that's what we're on right now. You can change it to low, medium, high, very high. So let's make it high. You could also change the shadows to low, medium, or high. Let's keep it at low. Let's go to the General tab. And from here, you have a bunch of checkmark boxes that you can select. For example, textures, colors, shadows, edges, and you can also change the different lighting options as well, like environment lighting, environment reflections, and object reflections. These are really quick to do and really great to use when trying to visualize your project in 3D. Now, let's go one step further and go into the lighting options. Here is another settings window where you can change the ambient lighting, for example, the environment lighting, and the brightness of all of that. So I can change the brightness of the ambient light. I could change the color of it if I want to. I could turn it off also. The camera tab here is really great too, because this applies real-world camera settings for your view. So for example, depth of field. Now I can choose the focus distance. You can see right now that some of the view here is blurry and some of it's in focus. Now if I wanted to change that, for example, if I wanted to make, instead of the table being in focus, I could make the countertop in the back in focus. And you could see that it automatically changes the distance, and you could see that it changes here. So it's blurry on the table over here, it's a little blurry on the couch over here, but the kitchen is in focus. Now you can also change the exposure and apply different settings with the exposure too. This requires some trial and error. I personally don't know camera settings as well as a professional, so it requires me to test it out. Also, you could change the f-stop, which is the same thing with camera settings. You could change that, the aperture size of the lens, and there's also help text at the bottom over here. So if I roll over the f-stop here, it says set the aperture size of the lens, smaller numbers increasing exposure and depth of field effects. The last thing here is bloom, which enhances bright light in the scene. And you could change that number as well. So if I went to like 15, you could see it gets a little bit different over here. So this is the shaded render mode within your project. As I move around the model, the view is constantly updating. There's no cooking needed for an actual rendering. This is the model view. When you have a 3D view that you like for this one, for example, you can save this view so that you can refer back to it and go back to it whenever you want to. So for example, if I wanted to create a new one, I can go to the Saved Views tab in the navigation palette, click New, and rename this. So let's do Z Interior Living Room. And that's fine. Okay. And I pressed enter and the window went away. But if I went to edit, I right click and press edit, then you can decide what layers and classes are visible. And then you can also click the settings here to restore that, the layer visibility, the location, the render mode, and so on. So if I unclicked these areas and unchecked these areas, then that part would not save. So for example, if I unclicked restore view orientation and I tried to invoke this saved view, that orientation wouldn't go back. We wouldn't go back to this orientation. So I want to keep that checked. Now, what's really cool with saved views is that you can use saved views for a presentation. You could just have Vectorworks open and use Vectorworks with saved views to move throughout your model. So you can do that by just going down the line of saved views, and you can also add view transitions to your saved views too. So down here in the settings window, it says view transition, and the Vectorworks preference is rather quick. It just goes from one view to the next. But if you click custom, you can change the duration, which the Vectorworks preference is 0.3 seconds, but you can change it to, let's say, 3. And then you could choose from decelerate, accelerate, smooth, or linear. So let's do decelerate and press OK. And let's go to a different saved view. Let's do the dining table view, which is this one, and you could see that it is zooming in very slowly, and that's because I have a view transition in here. So I have 6 seconds and decelerate. So if I went to 3 seconds and I went back to a different view, so let's go back. Okay, and then let's click the saved view again. You can see it's a little bit quicker now. Now, this is great for moving throughout your model, and you could use this as a presentation tool as well. Okay, so let's go back to that view that we had before where we were looking at the living room. And you can see that there are some shadows involved here. There's a shadow, there's these like square shadows here, which are from the window, and then there's also these like long shadows coming from this light fixture. So to create shadows, you need light. So the way to do that and to incorporate shadows within your views are to have two things, lights and a heliodon. A heliodon is an object that represents the sun. So the best way to place a heliodon is to be in plan view. And this is showing the overall model. It's pretty big, but you could zoom in over here and you could see that this object here is the heliodon. If I have this selected, you could see in the object info palette that I have the location set in New York, the position, which is the longitude, latitude, and then I have the time of day and the time of the year and the sun brightness. So I could change this according to whatever time I want. So if I wanted to do this 3 p.m., it would change. You see that the arrows now have changed. So the way I set this up was to have several heliodons. I have a bunch in the project. I have a 9 a.m., a 12 p.m., a 3 p.m., and I think that might be it. I might not have a 6 p.m. one. Yeah, I didn't place a 6 p.m. So let's place a 6 p.m. one. So the way to place a heliodon is really simple. You would go to Visualization Toolset, and then go to the heliodon. And then all you have to do is just click to place, and then click again. And then this is it right here. Now it's on a specific layer and a class. I put this on a special class, but you can also now change this time to 6 p.m. and we could change the date. Let's make it the 25th and we'll do June. Okay, so now if we turn all these off and go to 3D, you could see the shadows are accurate to a New York 6 p.m. sunlight. So let's go to a different view here to normal perspective. And let's use the walkthrough tool to help us walk backward a little bit. Cool. And then you could see the shadows there too. So with the heliodon, you could also change the location too. So it automatically defaulted to New York because that's what I placed before. But if I wanted to change that location, I can go to the settings and I could change the latitude and longitude, or I could do it by a region in the world. And there's different countries and areas to choose from. So that's important for lighting, for exterior lighting, like for the sun. Now for interior lighting, we'll take a look at this inside area. For interior lighting, it's just as simple as 3D modeling. There is a light tool. So in the visualization tool set, there is a light tool. When you invoke the light tool, there are a couple of different lights to choose from, like directional light, point light, spotlight, and then there's a custom light as well. I don't use the directional light as often because that simulates like sunlight, and I have the heliodon for that. But you can use this one if you want, if you don't want to use the heliodon. The point light works like a bare light bulb. I use that sometimes, but I also like to use the spotlight mode, and that is I would say that's more like a typical light, and that looks like a flashlight or a conventional spotlight. So in this view right now, the lights aren't on. You can tell because there's no shadows and the light is all even right now. So I put lights on a different class. So if I went and turn that on, if I turn the light source on, then the model would look like this. You could see that there are lights beaming down from the ceiling. You could see the shadows from the lights beaming onto the stools over here, and you could also see the shadows off in the distance with the living room and also on the fireplace. So how do we place lights? How do we deal with lights? How do we edit lights? And so on. there is a quick preference setting that is very useful for lights. It's at the top right hand over here, and it says display light objects. If it's not shown on your screen, you could also invoke it over here and look for the display light objects as well. I pinned it to the top, that's why it shows up over there already. So here it says display light objects, and then you click this and it says only in wireframe, always, or never. So I like to keep it in wireframe. So now let's take a look at this light. So this light you can see is now selected, and now let's edit this light. And let's go to 3D. And we could turn off the surrounding objects, and we'll zoom in over here. So now we're still in shaded, so let's go to wireframe. And now you could see that this is that light object right here. Now this light is a 3D symbol. I chose to create it as a symbol because I want to edit all the lights in my project at the same time rather than singularly. So I made it a symbol. So now we're in that light symbol. So if I select the light, you could see that it is a spotlight, and you could see that at the object info palette. And then there's a bunch of settings to choose from here to change how the light looks. For example, you can change it to a point light or a spotlight or directional or so on. You could turn off shadows or not. You could also change the brightness and the dimmer and the color temperature. Now these three areas over here are very important. So if I wanted to make this a little bit lighter, maybe 4,000 lumens, and then also change the temperature to 3,000, that would change how the light looks. So let's take a look at it. Now we're in wireframe again. So now it's going to go back to shaded. And that's what it would look like. Now if you see a view like this and you like this view, you can also create a viewport from this. The way to do that is to go to View and then Create Viewport. And then this viewport settings window comes up, and you can choose a sheet to put it on. Let's put it on the interior kitchen, and we press OK. And then this is that viewport. And this is an old viewport. So let's zoom into this one, and let's turn off or remove this drawing title. And then we'll go into the settings of the viewport. Now the viewport has rendering settings to choose from. So now we're still in shaded. You can change this to Renderworks, which is more realistic, or you can change it to other things like artistic, hidden line, sketch, polygon, so on and so forth. But let's keep it at shaded for now, and then let's go to the settings. Now this is what we were dealing with before when we were in the model space. It's the same exact thing. So let's keep it the way it is for now. Then let's go to lighting and just take a look at what we're doing here. It's pretty much the same thing as what it was before in the design layer. So we'll cancel that, and then we will update it. And then that's the viewport. So this looks great, but if we want to make it better, we can. So let's go back into the settings and take a look at what we can change. So for example, if I don't want to see the edges, I can change that as well. So if I go to General, and then let's go to Edges, turn them off. And then also, I don't like how this little bit of the countertop is cut off. So let's crop and adjust the crop. Also, there's a lot of ceiling being shown here, so maybe I don't want to see the ceiling as much. So when I go to crop, all I have to do is just draw a rectangle of what I want and what I don't want to see. So let's do that. That looks pretty good. And then we'll exit, and then we'll update again. Okay, and then that's the finished result. So that looks great for a quick rendering to get your point across and to explain your design in 3D. Now, if you wanted to make this a step further and go more realistic, you can do that with Renderworks. The way to go from shaded quickly to Renderworks is to have a viewport like this, and then go to the object info palette, go to the background render, and change it to Renderworks. And from here, the Renderworks style, you can choose all these different types of Renderworks styles to choose from. So what I like to do is realistic, interior, fast, and then from here, you have to also take a look at all the different lighting options to choose from. Now, when you're in Renderworks, you get a little bit more involved with settings. So you get to choose from a bunch of things here. So let's make sure we have this on, this, and let's do camera effects, and let's make this low. And then this lighting will change to this. Edges were fine, we don't want to have that. And then that looks fine to me. And then we will update it. Okay, so after a couple of minutes, this is what a fast Renderworks rendering looks like. Now, sometimes if this takes a long time, you could send this to the cloud to update. That opens up a world of possibility, because then you can update your viewports, you can render high quality renderings in the cloud while also working on your computer at the same time locally. Now, if we look at this, you can adjust accordingly with class and layer visibilities. You can see here that the swings are here. I have some weird glass that I put on here that I was playing with, so I might want to change that later. And then you can change the class and layer visibilities with the object info palette, just like how you would do that in any other viewport. So this is a great tool to use that is built into Vectorworks. It's integrated within Vectorworks so that you don't have to go to a different software and pay for a different software strictly for rendering, and then also have experience with data loss or learning that software and so on and so forth. So all of this is built in Vectorworks for you. Once you have your finished rendering, such as this one, there are a couple of tricks to use this and publish it for your presentation. So first up, what you can do is you can copy this image, and then you can go to Edit, and then Paste as Bitmap. Now when you do that, this is now pasted as a snapshot of your rendering. So this before, underneath here, is the viewport, and then on top of it over here is a bitmap, and you could see that in the object info palette. This is just a image. You can also go to File, Export, and then go to Export Image File. And then here you can draw a marquee over your rendering, and then decide what size of the print you want, and then export that image. And then lastly, you can publish by going to File, Publish, and then choosing the rendering sheet that you have. And then pressing Publish. And don't forget to visit our education page at vectorworks.net/education to download a free student license. There's also information for the Vectorworks Student to Pro program and Vectorworks University, which contains a collection of videos, learning paths, and sample files. Thanks, everyone, and I welcome your questions.
All right. So thanks everyone for watching. If you have any questions, you can write them in the chat. I see two of them right now. So the first one is, how did you get the insulation in the wall? That's a great question. So when you are drawing a wall, you can have components within that wall. And the wall style defines what the wall is made up of. And sometimes there's unstyled walls, sometimes there's styled walls. So if you are wanting a wall that has components in it, the best way to start is to go in the resource manager and look for a wall style that is preloaded within Vectorworks, and then you can use that first and also edit accordingly when to adjust with whatever wall type you want. Now, when you are dealing with texturing or the way that it looks in 2D, the best way to do that is going into the settings of that wall style and then editing the classes or editing the attributes within that wall style. So that's the way to do it. For Diego said, for texture manipulation of the countertops, can you use the attribute mapping tool? So I like to actually use the render tab when I do this. So when I was I saw this question come in and I was testing it as we were watching. I had the countertop selected and then I went to the render tab of the object info palette. And when you have that countertop selected, there are three sections that are textured. So it was waterfall one, waterfall two, those are the either sides, and then the countertop itself. So if you select one of those pieces, then there's another row of settings where you can scale the texture, you can change the texture, you can also rotate and adjust like the direction, like the H and V or the U and V value. So that's how you would do that for that. So it's pretty easy. There's sliders for that too. So yeah. So if there's any other questions, please type them out. I know that we touched on some stuff. There's a million other tools to use in Vectorworks and a lot of other workflows. So I definitely encourage you guys to try it out and then also go on the Vectorworks University to investigate even more. We have YouTube videos, other webinars, sample files, like what I was saying before, and also other videos and learning paths to go through. And Jen posted the link of Vectorworks University on there. So definitely check it out. It's a wealth of knowledge.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. And thank you to Ryan and our friends from Vectorworks for an incredible installment of series. I know that I learned a lot from these series and really am excited to be testing out the capabilities with Vectorworks. It seems like the possibilities are really infinite, and we're just so grateful to have you all here. And thank you again so much.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I think we're good. I think I'm going to sign off.
Alrighty.